In this segment, we're going to get into one of the very important features of karting, setting your camber. The experienced racers know the secrets of setting camber on their kart. Today, we're going to teach you some of those secrets.
In this video, you'll learn how camber and caster affects your kart and how the pros use them to achieve faster lap times. Through the use of camber changes, you'll be able to improve the handling of your kart, as well as improve the performance. Understanding why camber settings affect performance is often more important than the settings themselves. A good team will always take notes before and after they make changes.
You got that one last year during the run. You could have worked for that Go-Kart.
The most important tool in setting camber is a quality camber gauge. This can be done with either a standard bubble gauge or a digital gauge. Conventional caster camber gauges, which are made for automotive uses, incorporate caster and camber settings. But for the more specialized camber settings only in karting, Longacre now makes a karting camber gauge. Keep in mind the kart camber gauge is specifically designed for setting camber on karts that are designed with either the conventional pill kit design or the Heim joint design. For karts that are equipped with adjustable caster, you will need to move in to the automotive style caster and camber gauge. All right, let's get started with the basics. First of all, we must properly put our camber gauges together. I see many people that assemble their camber gauges wrong, and it greatly affects their end result in their numbers. Any camber gauge, whether it's a Longacre or any other product, has a gauge and an adapter. You must properly install the adapter to the gauge. With Longacre design and most any other manufacturer design, you have a shoulder bolt with a wave washer and an adapter. It's important that you put this little wave washer in the right place. To properly put it together, the wave washer is supposed to go over the shoulder bolt, which goes inside of the adapter. On some models, there is a washer that goes here that acts as a thrust washer, like on the automotive design that you can see here. With this design, they do not use a washer. You simply screw it together, like so. The purpose of the wave washer that goes on the inside is to load the adapter to the gauge and takes the play out in the center. This play can cause inaccurate numbers on your vial when you're finished. These wavy washers are very important to properly assembling your camber gauge. These washers often will wear and break and will need to be replaced. So on a routine basis, check your camber gauge and make sure that this washer is in properly working order. As the gauges are designed, you simply remove the spindle nut which is on the kart and screw the gauge on to replace it. With this design, we have found here at Phantom that there is a few variables that take place. We found that in this design, with 4 spacers, 2 hub bearings, and the hub, can cause some extra variables which will affect your end numbers. So what we have came up with on our own personal gauges is a plug that goes in the center of the adapter. What this plug does is it screws up against the end of the spindle bolt, which is machined. The end of this plug is machined, so you have solid contact one-to-one basis. And it takes all the different variables of the spacers and the bearings and the hub out, which gives you a much more consistent number. At this point, many of you are probably asking yourself, what is camber? Camber is the angle at which the tire runs in relationship to the track, whether it be negative or positive. As for that, we'll get into that in just a minute. Camber can be in any 4 tires, front or rear. Your rear tires are only adjustable on a go-kart by stagger because of the straight rear axle. But on the front of the cart, we can adjust the camber through the spindles, whether it be through use of pills or through heim joints or any other way. Camber is either checked and set in a positive or negative position. Most racing vehicles hardly ever run zero camber. As you're looking at the front of the cart as you are now, negative camber will be when a line from the outer part of the wheel down to the track and level with the ground is greater than 90 degrees. This is negative camber. Positive camber is when a line projected down from the outer side of the wheel down to the ground and out at the ground plane is less than 90 degrees. This angle here is not really relevant as far as how the cart performs. What plays into effect is the bottom of the tire at the contact patch, and that's what we'll get into a little bit later. Camber has many purposes. The first and foremost is drivability. Through adjusting your camber, you can change the way the cart drives to suit a driver's wants out of a chassis or track conditions. By putting more or less camber in the front, you can speed up the front end, you can make it bite a little harder, you can make the front end more responsive or less responsive. Another reason for camber is tire temperatures. You can use your camber to adjust your tire temperatures for chassis performance. And probably the least factor for camber is tire wear. You can adjust your tire wear through camber. Most of the time you find yourself falling back on whatever runs fastest, and tire wear normally comes as a bottom rung on the totem pole. But those are the main reasons for camber. Now it's time to check the camber. There are many factors that affect your end results or your end numbers when you check camber. Most important is the chassis needs to be level. The best place to check the caster is on the scales, like you're going to weigh the cart out, because your scales are already level. Also, it's important that you keep your steering centered. A good way of doing that is with your steering lock. This is also done on the scales. A level chassis, the correct steering position, air pressure stagger, the driver being set in the seat, all these are critical to getting accurate numbers with your camber setting. Once you have the cart on the scales and ready to check the camber with the driver in position and all the other variables, make sure that your gauge is good and tight on your spindle. Then level the small caster vial at the end of the gauge. From there, you have a vial down to each side of your gauge which reads positive or negative, depending on which side of the cart you read the appropriate vial. The center gauge is your caster vial, and for camber settings, it really means nothing. It doesn't really matter where this gauge is or what it reads. A camber gauge has two vials. It has a positive and a negative side. Depending on whether you're working with positive or negative camber, use one vial or the other. This is your positive camber, so when you're working with positive camber, you work with this vial only. When you're working with negative camber, you work with this vial. To read your camber, you simply read from 0 to the center of the bubble. Each camber gauge is marked by lines which indicate the different camber degree. In most cases, the bubble will touch as many as 3 lines, but it's important that you read to the center of the bubble. Now I want to talk to you a little bit about how to adjust the camber on your cart. First of all, you need to determine whether your cart has adjustable camber. Some of the older model carts do not have adjustable camber. If you're interested in making your cart so it can be adjusted, you need to get in touch with your manufacturer, because most of the manufacturers offer an upgrade or spindles that will offer camber adjustment. Over the past couple of years, the most common design used to adjust camber has been through the use of peel kits. For carts that have peel kits, to change the camber, all you have to do is either rotate the peel, if it has a style peel that rotates to change the camber, or in this case, you can change the peel. Each peel is equipped with positive and negative camber, depending on which way you want to turn it. If you put a half-degree peel in, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have a half-degree camber. It just changes it a half degree from a zero peel. The numbers on the peel just dictate how much they change from the stock setting of the cart. It doesn't take into consideration anything like stagger or air pressure or rake in the chassis, which makes a difference to your finished actual run camber. A common mistake that racers make whenever they're using their peels and their spindles is putting the peel in the wrong way. You need to notice which way you take the old peel out and which way you put the new peel in, because you have a positive and a negative side to each peel. Typically, for most oval track applications, you'll always run the positive side on the left-hand side, and you'll run the negative on the right. With our setup, whichever sign you have toward the roll pin or the lineup pin is which way you're using it. Like for this side, we'll put this peel in with the plus side towards the roll pin because it's on the left side of the cart. This being a half-degree peel, it gives us another half degree of positive camber. Now, when we talk about increasing and decreasing or positive or negative camber, on either side of the cart, as this angle of the spindle goes down or the top of the tire tips out like this is what we refer to as positive camber. And when the end of the spindle comes up and the top of the tire tips in, this is what we would call negative camber. This is true for either the right or the left-hand side of the cart. While peel kits are unique in the fact that they can be added to older model carts, the downside to them is that the degree marking in the top of the peel kits are just there for a reference point and not necessarily your actual camber settings. That's why it's important to always use your camber gauge and go back and check to make sure what your actual camber is on your car. The latest innovation in the karting as far as caster adjustment goes is the new Heim joint design. This design has many benefits over the standard peel kit. Unlike the peel kit design, where you can only adjust the camber in quarter-degree increments, the Heim joint design allows you an infinite adjustment through the use of an upper Heim joint. By adjusting the two jam nuts, you can basically achieve any camber setting you so desire. Now let's take a closer look at how easy it is to make an adjustment on this style cart. First thing you do is get the cart on a level surface, like your scales or a good level concrete pad. First thing you do is remove the nut from the end of the spindle. Install your gauge onto the end of the spindle, tighten it down, and level your small bubble on the end. Be sure that your steering wheel is locked in the center position. After you have your camber gauge on the cart, take your initial reading. Then, remove your pin from the upper Heim joint. Then, depending on which way you want to adjust your camber, you loosen the appropriate nut. Keep in mind that if you want to add positive camber, you adjust the Heim joint out. So let's pretend that we want to add positive camber to this side. What we do is we loosen this rear nut a couple of flats. Each flat on the nut is approximately 1/8 degree camber. Next, you snug the outer nut down to pull it up tight and take a reading from your gauge. If your reading is not right, you want to make a further adjustment, just do the same thing again. Take a reading. If everything is good, retighten the jam nut so the cart's ready for competition. Install your safety pin. Take your camber gauge off. Install your axle nut and pin You ready for competition?
Remember, camber changes to your kart could produce slightly different results. Try these in smaller amounts and compare lap times. Understanding camber and its effects will allow you to make changes that will produce faster lap times and improve the comfort and ease of driving.
To make it simpler, let's break this down into two sides. First of all, let's talk about the right front. The right front probably plays a bigger factor in the performance of the chassis than the left front. That's obvious because we run a bigger right front tire. It's on the outside of the kart, which takes more of the load. Typically, on banked racetracks versus flat tracks, you will generally run more negative camber. This means that the outside edge of the tire is tipped up and compared to the inside edge of the tire. What this does is it allows the right front, by picking that edge, the outside edge up out of the track, it takes a little bit of bite out of the right front, which makes the kart a lot more drivable and a lot less jerky. All right, with that in mind, that's some of the things you need to ask your driver when he comes off the track. Factors such as whether the front end is biting too hard or not enough, meaning the front end is lazy or wanting to pick up a slight push, whether the front end is responsive in the first few laps or it works in. The longer you run, the better the front end gets. These are all factors that you need to know.
What about camber on like the left front? About a degree, 3/4? They don't seem to change that much in place. I mean, those tires don't ever change enough.
If the driver comes in and he tells you that the front of the kart has too much bite in it, he feels like the right front is possibly, quote unquote, digging into the track, then chances are you probably got your right front camber too low, or either too much positive or too low of negative camber. By adding a little bit of negative camber, this will get the outside edge of the tire up out of the track, which will take a little bit of bite out of the front end and normally make the driver a little happier and a little more consistent in his driving life. Contrary to that, the driver says that the right front does not feel like it has enough bite, or the front end is a little lazy, meaning that there's not enough bite in the right front, or that the front end is not really planted, then chances are you have too much negative camber in the right front. To fix this, what you do is add some more positive camber, which lays the tire back down flatter on the track, gets the outside edge of the tire to bite more, which gives the right front more bite. This will make the kart steer better down into the corners and up off the corners. This is often a good fix for a small push on a flat track. Tire temperature and tire wear is directly related to the right front camber of your car. Monitoring your tire temperature and tire wear can definitely increase your knowledge of camber and how it affects the performance of your car. Let's take a look at a chart to show you what we're talking about. Now let's talk about the left front. Just like the right front, on tracks that have more banking, you typically want to run more camber on the left side. But keep in mind, camber on the left side is normally positive versus negative on the right side. But you generally don't run as high of number as you do on the left side. Most of the time, you only run about half the amount of positive camber on the left that you do on the right. As far as the effect of the camber on the left front, it often works in reverse of what's on the right front. a situation where the front is a little too tight or has too much bite, you'll want to decrease the positive left front camber. In other words, you'll take a little bit of positive out, which will set the tire down a little flatter, so it will not transfer quite as much weight to the right rear. Then, when you have a situation where the front of the go-kart does not have enough bite or a slight push, you'll want to add a little bit of positive camber to the left front, which will make that tire dig a little harder and transfer some more weight back to the right rear, which will make the kart turn better in the center of the corner. Now let's take a look at some troubleshooting examples for the left side camber. By now you should have a good understanding of how camber affects your kart. Now let's take a look at how the pros use camber to their advantage. Many pros have learned by using camber to their advantage, they can not only gain corner speed, they can also gain straightaway speed. Even though we run a big 800 tire on the right front, on tracks that will allow us to run a lot of negative camber, there's only a small patch of this tire that actually touches down the straightaway. This equals less rolling resistance on the straightaway, which can increase straightaway speed greatly. One downfall to running this much negative camber is in some situations the kart will pick up a lot of lead. What I mean by lead is the kart will try to constantly turn left down the straightaway, meaning the driver will have to pull the kart back to the right. This can and does scrub off straightaway speed. What you have to do is find a balance between enough camber to get enough tire off the track to reduce rolling resistance, and to balance that with your setup to get the lead down to a minimum. This will achieve the lowest lap time. If you find that your right front camber setting works pretty good in the corners, but you pick up a lot of lead on the straightaway, you can go over to your left front tire, take out some of your positive camber, which will kind of counteract the lead down the straightaway, which will make the kart track straighter and build more straightaway speed. The downfall to that is sometimes by taking the left front camber out, you may pick up a small push in the middle of the corner because the left front is not wanting to bite as much as it did. This is something you're going to have to play with when you get a few extra laps on the track. Try it each way, see which way makes for the faster lap times and makes the driver more comfortable. Let's say you go to a new track that you've never been to before and you don't quite know what camber is going to work the best. The first thing we do is we start with our numbers that's on the chart. Depending on what size track, what size banking, we go to the numbers like you see shown on the chart. After that, we go out on the track for the first round of practice and we ride the kart to get a good feel of how the kart's going to react, whether it's got a slight push or whether the front end's too tight, etc. After we ride the kart, then we normally start working with the right front camber. If the front end is a little tight, what we'll do is we'll increase some camber, try to get as much camber in the front as we can to make the front end lazy so any imperfections in the driving style will not show up as bad. On the contrary to that, if you have a front end that has a push in it, front end doesn't want to turn down in the middle of the corners, we'll take some camber out, get the outside edge of the tire down to bite. This will make the front end snap to the bottom better, make the driver more comfortable. After we dial in on the right front for a while and get it to where we like it, then we'll move over to the left front. That's where we take camber out or add camber to fix the lead problems that we mentioned earlier. If the front end is wanting to turn to the infield all the time, we'll take a little camber out. If the front end's not wanting to turn in the middle of the corner, we'll add a little more camber. By adjusting the right front and then the left front, it gives us a little bit better understanding of what the cart's doing, and it makes it a little simple. Often, racers come up to me at the track and say that their cart's handling good, but they're just not making any speed. A lot of times on a bank track, when your cart really has to climb a hill to get up out of the corners, the guy will say the cart's driving good, it's turning good, but it just won't come out of the corners. A lot of times what it is you don't have enough negative camber in the right front, and meaning that this outside edge is really digging into the track and scrubbing off a lot of speed. For this situation, you can increase your right front camber to get this edge up out of the track, which will let the cart climb the hill and accelerate up out of the corners. Also, on a flat track, I've had drivers tell me that coming out of the corners, they just can't build any speed, but they have to turn the wheel a lot. It's like they're constantly tugging on the cart to get the cart to come to the bottom. This is just the opposite of what I just mentioned. You have too much camber in the right front, meaning that this outside edge is not touching on the flat track, and that you're having to do all the turning with the inside edge and the left front tire. And this really scrubs off speed as you turn the wheel to try to tug the cart to the bottom. For this, you can add some more positive camber to the right front, lay this outside edge down. As this right front bites, it'll cause the cart to transfer weight, unload the left side of the go-kart, and accelerate off the corner. One important factor that racers often overlook is that when you adjust the camber on your cart, you also affect the toe of your cart. Even when you're making small adjustments on the camber, you may not need to adjust it each time you make a minor camber adjustment, but over the period of a night, when you make 2 or 3 adjustments on a small level, they can add up and really make a difference in the toe of your cart. So it's important to go back and check the toe of your cart, make sure you get it right, so that the toe end does not overshadow the camber adjustments, and that you really get the full effect of your camber changes. And remember, things like track conditions, weather, climate, everything makes a difference. If you run at a track today, keep good notes. The next time you go back to that track in, say, a month or two, you want to start with those notes to give you a good baseline to get the night started. Things like track temperatures and so on and so forth may play a factor the next time you go back, and you may have to adjust from what you had the last time. But if you keep good notes, it'll give you a good base starting point for the next time you go back to that track. When most racers think about camber, they only think about the effects the camber has in the corner. But the fact is, camber affects the go-kart all the way around the racetrack, down the straightaways, as in the corners. As you can see in this demonstration, that by utilizing as much as 2 degrees of camber, like is in this cart, you can see that down the straightaway, before the tire is loaded in the corners, they were only running on about 3.5 inches of tire. This gives us the benefit of lower rolling resistance. As the cart is loaded into the corner, this tire spreads out and molds itself to the racetrack, which gives us the benefit of an 8-inch tire. By that, I mean that down the straightaways, we're not carrying the full weight and the full rolling resistance of an 8-inch tire because we're only running on 3.5 inches of it. When we get in the corners, as the tire molds to the racetrack, we pick up the full benefit of the 8-inch tire because the whole surface is now in contact with the track, and we get the benefit of the extra heat dissipation and extra size and contact patch. Now that we've covered some of the fundamentals of camber, I want to talk with you a little bit about caster and how it affects the cart. I'll start by telling you what caster is. Caster is the amount of angle that the kingpin tilts towards the rear of the cart on each side. On all go-karts, race cars, anything that I'm familiar with, all cars run what we call positive caster, meaning that the kingpin lays towards the back. In situations where the kingpin lays towards the front of the cart, that would be what we call negative caster. The major purpose for the caster angle in the front of the cart is to make the cart drive straight down the straightaway. Because each kingpin lays back, it makes each spindle on the front fight each other, which in turn makes the cart run straight. If the kingpin were standing up straight, there wouldn't be any preload on the chassis or on the spindles, which would make the spindles and the steering want to wander and make the cart want to wander all over the track. By adding caster to the front of the cart, it makes each side kind of want to turn towards each other, which in essence stabilizes the front of the cart and makes it drive straight. That's the major purpose for caster. But there's also performance gains in caster. With this design front end, you can adjust the caster by changing different blocks. These blocks, by changing them out, will actually rotate the spindle assembly back for more caster, forward for less caster. Over the years, there's been different designs for adjusting caster. Some have used slip tubes, some have used heim joints, some have used rotating plates. Our latest design is what we call a caster block design. What this design is, it uses two dowel pins that actually locate the caster, which is set in the caster block. This reduces any chance of slipping because you have two dowel pins that locate your caster and positively set it. It also eliminates the need for any caster gauges or turn plates to set your caster. With this design, each block has a number in the bottom that signifies what caster setting it is or what situation it is used for. You simply install the block, a bolt holds it on the bottom and the back with your conventional heim joint on the top that gives you camber adjustment. Once you bolt everything down, put the spindle assembly on, tighten everything up, your caster is automatically set and will not move. Now when you get ready to make a caster change, it's as simple as changing your caster block. All you have to do is disassemble your spindle, take your kingpin bolt out, take your spindle off, remove your upper ball joint, remove the nut, the bolt in the back side of the caster block, and remove your caster block. Get your second caster block, which has your new setting signified on the bottom. Bolt it back up. Notice that this block is different from the caster that's preset in the frame. All this block does is add caster from what the standard frame is. By changing the blocks, you can just add and subtract to the caster that's built into the frame. Once the block is on, install your heim joint, your bolt in the back of the caster block, install your spindle, reset your camber and your toe in. You got your new caster setting ready to go. Now that you understand how to change caster, let's tell you a little more about how it works and how you can change it to better suit your needs. Like I said before, the caster angle is the amount of angle that the kingpin lays towards the back. What happens with your caster angle is as the spindle turns with this axis, the end of the spindle bolt will rise and fall, causing one tire to go down, one tire to go up. Typically on oval applications with standard caster that comes in most conventional carts, as you turn the wheel to the left, this spindle will push down, this spindle will rise, which actually loads the left front and unloads the left rear. This helps the car to turn entering the corner because you need the weight on this tire to make it bite. With that said, as you increase your caster angle by moving the top of the kingpin further back, this increases the axis that the spindle travels around and causes this effect to multiply. So in other words, when you go from, say, an 8-degree caster setting up to a 12 or a 14, you're going to get more of the effect. You're going to have more weight transfer through the steering travel. At this point, you're probably wondering, what's the correct caster setting for your situation? Like I said in the beginning, the main purpose for caster is for driver comfort, to make the cart drive the way the driver needs it to be. I have not really found where making caster changes really makes a lot of difference in time just by changing the caster setting and the go-kart getting faster and faster. The main thing it changes is the way the driver feels, to make the driver more comfortable, so the driver can either be more consistent or can enter the corner at a different time or a different place to make the cart end up running a little faster. A lot of people think that just by taking caster out of the cart's going to roll freer and it's not going to bind up in the corners and so on and so forth. For the most part, that's not true. As you change the caster, you can put more or less caster in the front end of the cart to make the front end of the cart feel different. As you increase the caster in the front of the cart is going to feel heavier. The steering wheel is going to feel heavy. It's going to be hard to turn. The front end may be a little bit more responsive or a little less responsive depending on what the track situations are. But increasing the caster will make the front end of the go-kart feel heavy. The cart will track real straight down the straightaway, but the driver's really going to have to tug on the steering wheel to get the thing to turn. If you roll the caster out of the cart's going to feel real light. The front end's going to want to turn real easy and it's going to want to wander. But some drivers may like a heavy feeling front end. Some drivers may like a light feeling front end. That's something that you're just going to have to experiment with when you have time at the track. If you have an adjustable cart, play with it, see which way your driver likes it, see which way he can make the laps more consistent. Remember, it's not only the main purpose is not only to run 1 lap fast, it's to run 20 laps fast. A given setup may run 5 laps good and fall off of 15 laps, where another setup may not have as fast of an ET, but will make 20 laps faster, meaning that it's more consistent through the whole run, and you're going to get to the checkered flag sooner than running 1 fast lap and 19 slow laps. Currently, we offer 2 settings for our carts. In the future, I'm sure we'll offer more, but at this time, we feel like it's important to keep it simple, since this is basically a comfort feature. What we have is a dirt setting, which is often considered our standard setting, and an asphalt setting. The asphalt setting has a lower caster angle, which makes the cart a little lighter in the front end for the hard biting asphalt tracks. If you've ever rode dirt and asphalt, you know that an asphalt track will create more bite than a dirt track on average. So that's the reason when you go to an asphalt track, you may want to change over to your asphalt setting, which is like we have on the cart now, which takes a little bit of caster out of the front. That'll make the front end a little less heavy. Then when you go to dirt, you can go back to your standard dirt blocks, which will put a little bit more weight in the front end, make the front end of the cart a little tighter, make it drive a little heavier, which will kind of give you a middle of the road feel between dirt and asphalt. So that way when you go from dirt to asphalt, the cart doesn't drive totally different.
Asphalt carts need less caster than dirt carts. Caster changes could be more for a driver's comfort and should complement driving style. Less caster will cause a cart to bite less. More caster will cause a cart to bite more. Phantom carts use caster blocks to make caster changes simple. Use a caster gauge on all other carts to ensure accuracy of settings. Cart must be level to check caster settings. Always check for damaged parts.
If your cart allows you to adjust caster but doesn't have the luxury of preset blocks, a good range to remember is between 8 and 12 degrees. Most dirt applications will lean towards the high side of that window, where asphalt applications will lean towards the low side. So on your cart, for dirt applications, you're going to want to start to lean the kingpins back to 10, 12, possibly more, to make the front end of the cart feel a little heavier. This holds true on both sides of the cart. On asphalt, you'll want to tilt it forward, back up to the 10, 8, maybe even a little bit lower degree range. This will make the front end a little lighter. This also holds true on both sides of the cart. This gives you a good range to know where you need to be to get you close. From there, confer with your driver, ask him how the cart feels, make changes accordingly, and that way you can get your cart to maximum performance. Just like it is important to get your camber set correct the first time you go on the track, it's equally important to keep your camber set on a weekly basis. Worn parts, damages, wrecks, all that plays a factor in how the camber is set in your car. By staying on top of your camber and keeping everything set correctly by using your gauge from week to week, your car is going to consistently drive better and consistently run up front. Now let's take a look at some of the secrets we've seen here today.
Use good quality camber gauge. Assemble your camber gauge correctly. Keep your camber gauge maintained. Use plug for more consistent numbers. Always level your cart and camber gauge. Keep your steering wheel straight. Read camber to the center of the bubble. Markings on fills may not be the actual percentages of your cart. Always tighten spindles before reading gauge. After camber changes, check your toe. Phantom caster blocks are marked on bottom for asphalt and dirt. To make caster changes without phantom caster blocks, you will need a caster gauge. If you run less caster in your cart, this could cause less experienced drivers to become darty or jerky. The intent of phantom caster blocks is to tune the feel of the cart to complement the driving style of the driver without the use of a gauge. Do not commonly change caster settings in the middle of race day to accommodate track conditions.
Well, I hope we've been able to teach you a few karting secrets today about camber setting. There's a few things I want to point out to you before you leave. As you adjust your camber, keep good notes. If you start working in a direction that seems to improve the handling of your cart, keep working in that direction, no matter what any charts or tapes or anything says. What works best for you is the bottom line. Camber settings are important, but remember, camber is not the fix for every problem. If you keep on top of your camber settings, you'll definitely keep your cart in the winner's circle more often. I'm Harrell Wiggins, and I'll see you here next time.
We hope you've enjoyed the first tape of our new series, Top Secret, the Video Club. Your next tape is already in production. As a Video Club member, you will receive one of the first copies at the reduced club price. Don't forget to check out the Phantom website for special club member discounts at www.phantomchassis.com. If you're not a member of the hot new Top Secret Video Club, but were lucky and saw this tape, it's not too late to join. You will receive all the latest tips, tricks, and setups from the pros. Each tape targets one subject and covers it inside and out, from rims, tires, setups, scales, secret tools, and secret tips. You could learn more from one tape than a lifetime of karting.
By now, you should have a better understanding of how camber affects your car. What you may not know is how the pros use this camber to their advantage. Let's take a few look. Use this camber to their advantage. By now, you should have a better. Keep banging and hitting and scratching. By now. And one last thing, changing your camber is not the fix for every problem. And I'm stuck again. The only other thing I want to tell you is that I screwed this one up too. So keep it winning, keep it in the winner's circle, and we'll see you next time. That just means do it again.